Hello, welcome to another video. Let's do some preset deconstruction. Let's deconstruct some presets from UHE's Repro5, the one of the two synthesizers available in his Repro collection. These are emulations of an old synthesizer called Pro 1, made by the Sequential Circuits company. Made a ton of other stuff as well, but this is kind of one of their more popular synthesizers, from what I understand. Never played on an original one myself. Don't know how many people have, but I gather this is quite a faithful emulation of that synthesizer with additional tweaks and quirks to make it slightly more fun. Respectful tweaks and quirks. So let's just have a quick look at the signal flow. We've got two oscillators here, both with a saw wave and a pulse wave with adjustable pulse width, and like octave and tuning, scaling, that kind of thing. Oscillator B is interesting. We've got a sync knob on oscillator A. Oscillator B is interesting because we've got an additional triangle wave and two other switches over here that enable cool stuff. So low frequency divides the frequency that it would be generated by a key touch and a note touch, divides it by some factor and drops it really low, so it becomes more useful as an LFO rather than an actual audible signal. And there's also a switch here to turn the keyboard tracking off, so that it's just a single droning oscillator that you can maybe, you can modulate the pitch or octaves or whatever you want to do with it. But basically it becomes not tracked to the notes that you're playing. That's a cool feature, I like that. And there's a little unison setting and some glide feature here. So both of those oscillators get mixed into one signal, fed into the filter here, which is affected by the ADSR below, envelope amount here, keyboard amount tracking there, keyboard tracking amount here. And that signal goes into an amplifier, which is again a basic ADSR, and which attached to a VCA, a volume control. Out of here, up until here, consider all this is polyphonic. And then also this distortion stage is also polyphonic, which means that when you're you can't do like power chord style thickness because each of the notes is being distorted individually. So it's a kind of different kind of distortion. After this point, when it hits this effect chain, it becomes, all these are kind of running in a mono mode, like the whole signal is being affected rather than each note that's coming through it. So I hope that makes sense. It should become clear. Hopefully there'll be a patch or two which demonstrates this. A little bit on the modulation stuff here. We've got the full matrix here, two option matrix, which is actually not just a matrix, it's kind of modifier as well. I don't know if you've seen the Diva video. There's some cool modifiers in the modulation area that you can put your signal through and adjust it slightly, like slew it, slow it down, or quantize it, for example, or sample and hold at various intervals, stepping, this kind of thing. It's quite cool. And the other this is the other kind of envelope modulation, or this is more like an LFO area. So here we can affect the oscillator's pitch and the frequency with filter envelope. So for example, apply the filter envelope to the frequency of oscillator A or the pulse width of oscillator A. And also we can apply oscillator B to any of these as well. There's a kind of crude FM we can do here. If we don't put that on low frequency and we apply this oscillator B signal to frequency A, it's basically going to be tuning the signal really fast up and down, much like an FM routine. But let's see what patches we discover that use it. Here we've got a global LFO, single kind of global LFO here that's got this cool kind of additional additive waveform control. So you can either have the LFO as a simple saw or a simple triangle, or you can combine them and get a slightly more complex shape, as you might do with also adding the pulse to that sound as well. One thing about this LFO is that I don't think it is key triggered, so it's constantly running. You can't start it at any particular point in the cycle. No phase adjustment, it's just running. And this cool wheel mod here is basically what the modulation wheel is going to do. And yes, we will explore that as the patches appear. So that's the basic signal flow. Let's go and do a patch or two. Should we just do a bass? Let's just do a crazy bass. Let's pick a bass. So let's look at EH Dark Hard Sync Bass 1. It's kind of fun. Let's have a look what happens when we move the mod wheel. Okay, that sounds like the LFO is being applied to the filter. And what happens, is there any aftertouch? Let's turn the filter down. Let's turn that down. And I'm just gonna... So that's aftertouch. It's like digging into the keyboard. Cool, okay, so there's a couple of different modulation things going on here. Let's have a look at them. So let's start from the end of the effects chain and turn whatever we've got going on here in the effects chain off. Let's see, we've only got Velvet on, which is this kind of sanitizer, kind of, I want to say sonic conditioner, but that's what that is. It's a kind of gain stage, kind of saturation thing. So let's turn that off. And look here, we've got nothing on the distortion, so that's very, very clean. Let's just see what's going on here. So filter, we've got that attached to an envelope. It's doing something quite basic. Oh look, it's going. So we're just going back to a little bit of slap. We could do it even so it has no kind of bite. Oh, there we go, a little bit of bite on that. So let's put it down there, yeah. Pretty basic amplifier output as well. We've got no release on that. It's very short, kind of sustained sound with no release. It's quite basic in that regard. So let's see what else we've got going on here. So we've got the filter doing something. Let's see what these are. Control B. What's Control B? Oh, you're fucking kidding me. Is it so okay, let's have a look at this patch, EH Dark Hard Sync Bass 1. That's a great name. That's kind of a name I would find. It sounds very functional. And does it do the thing? Sounds like a dark hard sync bass. Yes. Where's the sync? Let's just see. I think I read the sync is in the aftertouch. Yeah, that sounds like a sync to me. We'll probably hear that when we take the filter off. So let's just take this Velvet stage off because it's there's only one effect in this chain here, and it is Velvet. So if we turn that off, I mean, you hear what's going on. It's adding a lot of girth to that, isn't it? So that's where that girth is coming from. It's not coming from this distortion stage here or any part of the oscillator. It's just being added to at that point. So let's have a look at the filter oscillator setup. What's going on here? We have static settings here. We've got nothing really affecting the filter that I can see in the basic matrix here. Let's have a look over here. Okay, so the modulation wheel is... So this, what we're saying here, is when the modulation wheel is up, it's going to apply the LFO to the filter. And that's exactly what it's doing. There's the magic dubstep if you want the dubstep. I've also noticed there's this function here of Control B attached to filter resonance. Now, Control B, from fiddling around with my controllers, is actually my controller pedal. I've got a pedal on the floor attached to the input of my keyboard, and that is attached to that, so that's upping the resonance, up the resonance. So this I'm upping the mod wheel, reducing the pedal, up the pedal, a bit more resonance comes flapping back. And we can turn. Okay, look, let's add some sync to it as well. So I'll up the resonance. This is like all the modulations at maximum. So we've got the wobble, the filter being wobbled, the resonance being increased by my foot on the foot pedal, and I'm about to increase the sync by after touching. And there's the tone changing. So let's take all this stuff off and just hear the sync after or before the filter. Because of the way the filter's taken off the top end, it sounds quite vocally because of the way the sync function is working with the oscillators. Wow, 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 wow. That's what I can hear anyway. Nice. I wonder if that gets increased with resonance up. Okay, so let's just take that cutoff up to maximum so we can hear the oscillators cleanly. So that's the oscillator with just the sync on, no aftertouch. I'm going to up the aftertouch. There we go, there's the sync coming in. Beefy. But all that interesting stuff that's being added is being taken off by the cutoff, and it just turns into other interesting tonal stuff. Very nice. Let's just have a quick look at the way the oscillators are set up here. So we've got, I'm going to open that so we can hear what's going on, and let's just turn B down. That's A, that's oscillator A, the synced oscillator. This is pulse wave. Sometimes you can hear the kind of tonal changes that a pulse width change will have on the sound. You can hear there's more timbral changes than anything, but there's kind of pitch psychoacoustic stuff happening. It sounds like there's pitch stuff going on. So let's take the sync off. Which is also like as low as it can go in the octaves. Minimum octave, well, they both are minimum octave. Where you get this kind of bubbling stuff. Good sounding sync. So I was about to look at why this is set to 7 semitones above 0, but it's easy to see because it's creating harmonics in a certain space. They're making it more interesting, so if I put it back to 0, boring. Nice. Interesting. So if we turn that down, and this is the oscillator that we are syncing to, it's just a square wave. It's just a saw wave, forgive me. None of that's going to make any difference. It's keyboard tracked in the lowest possible octave. We've already seen that. And we can't, because it's not at full volume, I don't think it's back that up. Changing the sound a little bit. And depending on the kind of effects and stuff we'll have after it, it might have a giant effect. Subtle changes going on there. If we were distorting it, we'd hear the differences pop out a lot wilder, I might suggest. So, where are we? Let's go back and reset that. And is there anything else to look at? Let's have a look at Right, so how's that doing that? We've already looked at the pedal controlling the filter resonance going up and the aftertouch of the sync. So let's look at how. Oh, well, this is quite simple, though, isn't it? Yes. So we can slow that down and turn down the modulation wheel, and that's that. We can just make it a bit more unstable. Turn it into noise. There we go. That's not dubstep. That's kind of dubstep. Anyway, that's again, I should point out that the LFO, as far as I can tell, can't be reset by key trigger. I don't think I missed it in the manual. But yeah, that's an interesting feature. Useful for like playing along with arpeggios and things that are going to be tracking the tempo that you can hear, playing along to that rather than just me randomly making noises without any tempo guidance, because this is fixed to a tempo. Okay, that is a good noise. Let's look for something else. How about something in pianos and organs? I don't know. Let's have a look at Reeds on tape. Soft, kind of lo-fi. That might be my CPU complaining. Yes, it is. So let's have a look. Why is this sound so... Why is it shredding my CPU so much? Okay, we've got 8 voices. I should up that for 4. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah, it won't change it won't eat into my CPU, basically. These are well-coded, really beautiful machines, but they require, because Mr. Heckman wanted to capture as much as he could of these beautiful old machines. They're a bit of a drain on an old CPU, and I need to upgrade. But that's really nice. Lovely lo-fi sound, isn't it? So let's see, how did TUC get this sound? Let's have a listen. Let's start from the bottom. So what we've got, the sonic conditioner, what's that doing? Reducing the width, kind of stabilizing it. It. What's after that? We've got the drench, which is a nice reverb. And before that, we have the res EQ. Well, that's doing a lot of work, isn't it? That's taken a lot of the low end out. This is a frequency choice, isn't it? That's the the boost or the attenuation. So this is up quite high. Taking a lot of low end off there. Kind of needs it, doesn't it? And not doing much with the high. We just sort of seem to be left high. Yeah, we're not boosting it much at all, really. Very little shaping up there. It's mostly doing a lot of low end work. And after that we have Velvet. Again, another kind of gain, analog gaining kind of simulation. Turn it off. It's kind of thickening it up a little bit, isn't it? In a sort of unidentifiable, subtle way. Nice. Let's just go a little bit further back, and what we've got here, we've got distortion on. This is, remember, polyphonic distortion. So it's affecting each note separately. If we take it off, what do we get? Oh, it's doing quite a lot of the work. And the tone is set quite high, so it wants to add, that'll be like, as you can hear to the left, the tone is more of a sort of affecting the low frequencies, or, you know, it's like a tilt EQ, I suppose, to a degree. This is up here, we're just looking at not only affecting the highs, but maybe affecting the highs slightly more than the lows. So let's turn that off. What we were left with, lovely, lovely softness. So we've got like a long, slow decay here, down to a not quite zero. Sometimes some of these tweaks use different shaped envelopes because of the requirement of the sound designer to have a slightly different shaped envelope. This looks like it's set to the kind of classic, the idealized envelope shape. Let's just try a few others. Might be not too different. It might not be so immediately obvious, the difference in the shape. Anyway, this isn't an analysis of envelope shapes. We're just looking at presets. But that's the sound designer TUC decided on just the idealized envelope shapes for the two envelopes over here, the filter and the amplitude envelope. So let's see what else we've got here. I mean, we can hear the filters doing a lot of the work as well because it's quite low. If we turn it up, I'll bet there's a lot of other stuff going on that we can't hear. Let's have a go. That's a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of noise there. So let's see, what's all this noise made of? We've got a little bit of noise. It's noise, white noise. Only a touch, but it adds enough to be to add kind of instability into the signal, to make it interesting on the ears, and to make the components afterwards, the saturation and the velvet device and just adds small complexities into the signal to make it nice. So if we turn that off, then we just listen to oscillator B. Okay, so we've got an LFO here that's doing some work here. This is... I can hear something weird going on. So we're going to... okay, yes, look, we are adding... So there's some noise going on here. The modulation wheel. So this is the modulation wheel at 0. If I make it loud, it's adding some other stuff to it, and what it's doing is this wheel mod area is in operation when you increase the mod wheel. So what it's doing is applying the LFO speed to the pulse width and the filter. But because the LFO speed, the LFO sort of source mix is more on the noise than it is in the LFO, if we put it back to here, we can clearly hear the pulse width moving. Let's put it back again. That's just a tuning thing, I think, because yeah, we're just a little bit out of tune. But we can move it around. You can hear the pulse width now moving. And if I increase this over to noise, it's to where it was in the patch, kind of over here, you can hear the instabilities of the noise modulation source affecting, well, the filter and the pulse width. Of oscillator B, actually. Yeah, oscillator B, yeah. You can hear it more. If we just turn this completely to noise, that pulse width will just go ridiculous. It won't be any cycling. Interesting source modulation choices. Very interesting. So let's have a look at oscillator A. What's that? Oh, what's... So the LFO is also, through the matrix configuration here, affecting the mix of oscillator A. So we can already hear this, but it's pulsing in. Look, we can do that. Make it louder. Just back to where it was, or thereabouts. Just have a look at what shape we've got here. Oh, it's just a pulse width. Quite. Oh, I love the instantly cool harmonics. Look, not even another note, but you've got other harmonics sounding like other notes coming in. So both of these oscillators are pretty much in the same pitch, aren't they? You can hear them. They're both the same pitch. But they're both quite busy about the notes, the noises that they're making, aren't they? This one's doing some crazy pulse width modulation. And oscillator B. Oh, that's doing the pulse width modulation as well, isn't it? That's doing the pulse width modulation. And A, oh, hold on a minute, so we can look here. Look at here. We have the filter envelope affecting pulse width A, of oscillator A, the pulse width here. So that. This is being affected by that. So lots of complexities going on here. But then as soon as we take all that off, we get lovely stuff. I think that's the whole sound, isn't it? Yeah. But there was no... Yeah, no aftertouch and modulation wheels just affecting pulse width B and applying it to the filter as well. Okay, let's do one more. I like that sound. Let's just go away and click it again to make sure it was the nice sound. Oh, there you go. Too many notes. Oh yeah, let's put that on. Okay, let's just do one more. What do we want to do? Percussion. Bells, breakfast at timpanis. That's a nice kick, but we'll do something a bit more complicated. Let's have a look in here. That's interesting and potentially quite complicated. Let's have a look. So first of all, let's go through the sonic and all this, all the effect stuff, and chop all that. So let's handling the gain a little bit and widening. We can see what it's doing. It's kind of increasing the side signal. And what, afterwards we have Lyrebird. Let's turn that down. And what's that doing? Oh, loads of delay. Okay, that's dry. And that's wet. Yeah, it's doing like a ping pong thing, isn't it? One single repeat, and nice. Just like three of them in a row. Prior to which is drench, the reverb. Interesting delay after reverb. I love that. Great idea. Wow, it's behaving in quite an unstable fashion, this sound, isn't it? Right, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Let's see what's going on. So after Lyrebird, we have drench, which is the reverb. Let's kill that. Kill. Okay, dry. Now we've got velvet, which is this kind of saturation kind of thing. It's fucking blooming beefy, isn't it? Excuse me. even then it's still... Oh, so it's kind of preventing the signal from breaching 0. It's kind of handling the gain of it quite well, keeping it low. As soon as we take it off, like we're breaching the 0 dB FS scale in Logic, even though the output has been reduced to -1. I think it's good that UHE doesn't put limiters on the output, because it would just mess with your sound. And you're always constantly fighting with the thing that's saturating and trying to maintain your levels. I think it's much better practice for sound designers, preset designers, people who do this kind of thing for a living, to manage that stuff manually. I don't like the idea of a clamping limiter on my output just to keep me safe. I think we should be exposed to these horrible breachy noises that kill ears. Sorry about that. Okay, so that's like well loud. So let's have a look at why it's so damn loud. We've got reso... Hold on a minute, this could be interesting. We've got lots of peaking and adding going on here. Let's see what's going on here. So that's doing a lot of this work. That's doing a lot of that volume stuff. Look at that. Even though we're... this is, kind of range, isn't it? So we're boosting it. We're in a resonant mode. Okay, yes. So these are being selected from across the frequency spectrum, and oh no, this is the frequency. Yeah, right. Beefy. So we'll turn that off. We don't need that on. So a lot of these devices after that REQ. This is an interesting way of working. Why the hell not? Yeah, you've got this. I think a lot of guitarists do this actually. You basically change the sound with lots of heavy EQing, and then you feed it into distortion devices to balance, because distortion will always kind of hold the sound in place because you're overloading a signal and a saturation. You know, real circuitry has a maximum limit from which it can function, so you're always trying to game that limit when you're a guitarist, say, feeding your guitar pedal chain. But you've got no limits because those kinds of signals can't really breach digital limits. You're just kind of trying to keep a signal quiet or loud. As soon as you step into the computer digital realm, you have to consider how you're going to follow the signal into the next device because of the range at which it's expecting a signal to exist in. In this situation, though, we've got these sonic conditioner and the Velvet machine that can be used to kind of hold back the energies in the signal that we might be creating, for example, with this Res EQ device, which is completely, it's not completely changing it, but that's the sound without it, and with it, watch your ears, that stuff's happening. So yeah, that's kind of, I like that way of working. It's not good, it's not bad. It's almost like mixing into a multiband or a multiband device, multiband compression or saturation or limiter or something like that, taking advantage of the coloration processes that you're feeding your signal into prior to those coloration processes, kind of making them behave differently based on how you're feeding it. So obviously, if we were to, what I mean by that is if we turn Velvet on and then muck around with these, like all those devices after Velvet aren't going to be receiving a signal that's completely, beyond what it wants to handle, because we're taming it with this Velvet device, but we're also shaping it. God, it's pretty beefy, isn't it? Anyway, let's just reset that noise and turn off. Let's get back to the signal. Well, I can hear some digital effect. I can hear like a bit rate thing going on here, some kind of sample rate reduction thing. And as I look over to the distortion area here, that is exactly what I see. This corrode function is a digital kind of effect. The kind of thing you experience in the digital world. You can reduce the rate at which all the points are happening, so you have fewer sample points per second, which mean that the signal becomes lower quality, in a sense. Well, definitely lower quality. And you can also play with, reduce, ultimately, because you can't really increase it, the bit depth, which is the number of points going up and down between kind of +1 and -1 on an audio signal, as you might see it. Kind of quantizing the available points that the audio signal can be at. So it changes it again. So we can exploit that. So that's like low sample rate. But it was biting at the edges, and we've also got this crush that can completely destroy a signal. Should you choose to completely destroy your signal, it will completely destroy your signal. So we'll put that back at about halfway. What was that? Let's just push that back again, I think. Okay, he were there. He were there. So let's turn that off and see what we're left with. I mean, it sounds like a basic kind of, square, pulsey, and filter LFO thing, that's what I'd call it. So let's look at why it might be, it could well be the sound designer made this noise and thought, well, that's boring. Let me just put a load of stuff after it and see what happens. And he ended up with Mr. Doomed on Mars sound. So let's have a look at what is going on here. So I'm going to pull, let's make sure all my external control devices are set at a minimum. I'm going to pull the mod wheel back to 0 and my floor pedal, but that back to 0 again. Although I can see that there's no control B happening here. Because there's a light over here, I suspect something will happen as soon as I turn up my modulation wheel. Let's see what happens. Upping. Okay, so the filter's opening a little bit, as you can hear. That's what's happening. And this LFO, so that's basically the filters receiving the LFO from that. Let's see. So yeah, opening the mod wheel increases the depth that modulation is happening in onto the filter. That's kind of basic. It's just it's a cool. I think actually there's an inverted thing going on here. You can invert the saw wave. So if we put it, you don't want that noise. You want this noise. So that's a cool little feature to not be shirked at. Obviously there's a tweak that wouldn't have been available on the original synthesizer. It's been added in the cool tweaks page, which is very cool. Like that. But we can hear, there's something else going on here as well. There's movement, so let's just see what's going on. That's at 5. We've got sync on here, and we've got, that's going. So let's open the filter. I kind of want to turn that down a bit. Oh God, it's so great. What a lovely, full-on synth sound. Let's see what's going on with oscillator A, because this is synced to oscillator B. Oh, hold on, we've also got unison on as well, with 3 voices all happening at the same time. So, no chords, that's fine. What's the sync doing? Ooh, okay, we've got loads of crazy stuff going on here. Look, the filter envelope, which is this one here, is configured to affect the pitch of oscillator A. You can hear that. That's why it's doing. That was a good noise. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? Is that lovely? And obviously you can't hear a lot of that because the cutoff is down there. But I mean, as soon as we turn the sync on, it's being held. The oscillator is being held in position by oscillator B's settings. really slow filter here is what's shaping that. Oh, it's velocity driven as well. We've got velocity up here on maximum. Look, but velocity sensitivity can, well, it will increase the kind of wow, the growl of that synced oscillator in oscillator A. Let's see what we've got at B. How terribly boring. I mean, I'm not even sure if this is being heard or not. Let's just have a look at what's going on here. So it is tracked to the keyboard, not low frequency set. We've got a really fierce, very thin pulse wave and a triangle, super low octaves. That's kind of handy for doing the sync stuff. You kind of want as many, it's kind of, if you understand what's going on here, you want, the faster this is in relation to the faster the kind of receiving signal is to the signal that it's being synced by, in this situation, oscillator B, the more cycles of the waveform up here that are happening before this is saying, start again, keeps the signal interesting and colourful. There's lots of information between each of the synced restarts. It's difficult to hear at this rate because it's all happening so very fast. But this, again, is the oscillator. This is what this is syncing to. And there are 3 oscillators, I guess, all syncing to 3 of these, which is why it's a sound like this. So let's just go back to it again. I'm going to reset everything like that, turn this off. So both oscillators were up on full. You can hear the syncing a bit clearer. You can hear the act of the oscillator A being tuned while it's also being synced by oscillator B. That's kind of the kind of growl. You can speed it up, but just do. Wow. Sounds like a very angry digital cat. Okay, I think that is all of this patch. That was a fun 3 patches, I think, wasn't it? Let's wrap this up here, and I look forward to you attending the next preset deconstruction session. Not with this synth, with another beautiful synth. Have a lovely day, and thanks for watching.